Alrighty, so welcome everyone to another ESG Office Hours. Today is May 17th. My name is Aaliyah Martin, and I am an ESG Grant Manager. If you all, we could just start off with everyone using the chat function. If you could just add your name and your organization. We like to keep track of all of our grantees who are attending our office hours. And if you could make sure that you all are unmute, whether you're on the phone or if you're joined by video, that would be awesome. And then also, I just want to throw it out there, if you all have any questions that are not answered toward the end, or if anything happens to mind that is not addressed during the actual office hours, feel free to follow up with your grant manager via email. We're always here to support you all. And as always, this webinar is being recorded, and it'll be posted on the DOH website, the slide deck, as well as the recording. You all could feel free to view it there. Let me make sure everyone is being accepted into the room. Okay, awesome. Alrighty, so for today's agenda, I'm going to provide a general overview of ESG and ESG-CV monitoring. I'm going to discuss reasons why we do monitoring, who all gets monitoring, and then also provide a general timeline as far as monitoring goes. Also want to give an overview of risk assessment. I have a couple of reminders and updates to go over with you all. And then at the end, we'll have time for questions and answers. So ESG and CV monitoring overview. So DOH conducts monitoring towards the end of the grant cycle in really two primary ways, one being full monitoring and the other being partial monitoring. But both of these ways help to assess the ESG-funded organization's grant management and their oversight. So things that we're looking for or that are being monitored include the organization's financial management, the different services that are being provided, programming and eligibility coordination, for example, coordinated entry involvement, any data requirements, facilities, operations, and compliance. And there's a couple of other requirements as well. Each of these monitoring types requires a written notification and also advance notice from OHI. So this will also include a list of items or topics to be reviewed and other instructions or guidelines on the monitoring process. So for full monitoring, this is an on-site review of documentation and other programmatic and administrative materials to help ensure compliance with written standards, as well as with OHI and HUD requirements. But since COVID has really presented unprecedented circumstances, currently DOH is conducting all full monitors virtually as needed. If that changes, we'll definitely keep you all posted. And as far as partial monitoring, that takes place during a virtual examination of documents and a self-certification questionnaire that's signed and notarized by the ESG-funded organization. Your grant manager will let you know what type of monitoring will be taking place with your organization, if there is any. Okay, and then so for monitoring timelines, for grantees who received regular ESG funding, monitoring happens once per year around the months of May or June, but you'll be made aware of when monitoring will take place with your organization by your grant manager. And for ESG CV monitoring, since it's not really associated with a yearly timeline like regular ESG is, you'll receive more information on that in the coming months on how that monitoring process will be conducted. So just stay tuned for that, please. Okay, as far as the outcomes of monitoring. So if an ESG grantee's program is funded, is found to have any programmatic or administrative deficiencies during either of those mentioned monitoring processes, then DOH will develop a performance improvement plan. We like to call this PIP, and this works in collaboration with the subrecipient. And PIPs are really just designed to provide a formal and more collaborative process for agencies to access any technical assistance from DOH and to help ensure that their programs are aligned with all of ESG requirements and to improve the overall performance of the ESG funded programs. So to create a PIP, a DOH staff will schedule a one-on-one meeting to discuss outcomes from the monitoring and create measurable goals working with the agency staff members. And those PIPs will be in place until all the identified goals have been met. This progress will be reported through quarterly reports and will provide an opportunity for our agencies to discuss with that OHI staff any challenges and any successes that a program has faced, and also gives an opportunity for agencies to request any technical assistance from that DOH staff member to help them with assisting in meeting their goals. So when it's appropriate, a PIP goal form and quarterly reporting forms may be provided to those who are reviewing applications for ESG renewal funds. And this would really just ensure that program improvements are included in the review discussions and to help to ensure that ESG funds are being used correctly and effectively. Now onto risk assessments. Oh, sorry. So DOH monitors ESG funded projects based on their perceived risks. So these risks include, but not limited to, just to give you all a couple of examples, not having been monitored at least once during a 3-year period, or evidence from your pay request that your agency is not obligating or spending funds in a timely manner. You could be a new grantee or performing a new ESG component. Evidence based on complaints or visual inspections that the grantee is not providing shelter that conforms with the requirements or is not in performing the funded activities in an appropriate manner. If your agency has consistent staff turnover or organizational restructuring or other changes within the ESG funded program, this could trigger you having a risk assessment. Risk assessment tools. So there's a risk assessment tool that's actually posted on the DOH ESG page under the toolbox, and I highly recommend all of our grantees to take a look at it. It's also hyperlinked in this presentation, which will be shared with you all. But the risk assessment is scored on a scale of low, medium, and high risk in the areas of grant management, financial management, monitoring and compliance, shelters and facilities for those who are receiving emergency shelter funding, and fiscal agents. So just take a look at the risk assessment tool whenever you have some time so you can determine any deficiencies ahead of time that your organization might be facing prior to actually being monitored and prior to a risk assessment being completed by your organization. And there's a walkthrough of the risk assessment tool on the DOH website as well, which will show you exactly how to use this tool. Definitely recommend that as well. But just to highlight some important and helpful areas for you all to know, grant managers will complete the form based on your organization's performance through the last grant year. So all ESG and ESG CV grantees will have some areas flagged as high risk, and this shouldn't trigger an alarm by you. This shouldn't be anything you should be alarmed about. This would be due to not being monitored with updated DOH monitoring standards in the last 5 years, or either not being monitored on site within the last years due to COVID restrictions that were in place on traveling. So these are just important things to keep in mind. If you do get a high risk, don't be too alarmed by that because there's different reasons why you might have received that. So selecting grantees for monitoring. After all grantees for a funding cycle have had a risk assessment completed, a portion of those grantees with the highest risk will be selected for monitoring, either partial or full, like we discussed earlier. But just keep in mind again that just because your score, like I mentioned, is high in those areas doesn't necessarily mean you're doing something wrong or that there's any issues with your organization, but your grant manager will be able to provide you with the most insight in regards to your scores and kind of break that down to you. And I have a couple of reminders I wanted to go over with you all before we end this today. So all ESG grant agreements are in the process of being executed, all ESG 22 grant agreements. So thank you all a ton for your patience. I know this has not been the best timeline, but once your agreement has been executed, you will receive an email from your grant manager along with any next steps. All of the ESG grantees will be allowed pre-agreement costs backdating to April 1st, 2023, due to the agreements not being executed in a timely manner. And this is only applicable to ESG 22 grants. The pre-agreement pay requests, those need to be submitted separate from the pay requests that are within your actual grant start and end dates according to your executed agreement. So once you get your executed agreement, you'll have a date on there of your actual start date for your grant, but we are allowing you all to incur costs dating back to April 1st, those pre-agreement costs. So just be sure that you keep those pay requests separate from the pay requests that are actually within your grant start and end date, because those need to be processed separately. Another reminder I want to throw out there are your CAPER report will be due July 20th, and it'll be made available July 5th. So a couple of months away. And the date range for this report will be from April 1st until June 30th. And this will include your pre-agreement cost as well. Another reminder in regards to the CAPERS reports, those are supposed to be submitted through Neighborly, and be sure that you're uploading the actual CAPER reports and as a PDF, not a zip file or any other type of file. It's really important that you upload that as a PDF so that your grant manager is able to open that. It's easily accessible. If it's not uploaded in that and as a PDF, it will be sent back to you and it'll be requested from you as a PDF. So just wanted to throw that out there for you all. And now we'll should have some time for any questions and answers. If anyone had any questions, feel free. Right now is the time. Alexis, yes.
Hi, yeah. So there's not an exact date yet for when those ESG 22 contracts will be executed?
Unfortunately, no. I wish I could give you a better timeline. Our contracting team is just a little short-staffed and a little behind right now. So they're working hard on getting those to you. I'm hoping this month. That would be ideal. But again, you will be allowed those pre-agreement costs. If you want to start working on kind of gathering all of those costs together and putting them on a template, you can. You wouldn't be able to submit it through Neighborly yet, just because we have to wait for your executed agreement. But if you want to kind of start getting organized and gathering those things, I highly suggest you do that. But unfortunately, I don't have like a harder date on that.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yes. Yes, Kat.
Thank you. This is really helpful. With the pre-agreement costs, based on the last question, is there, we don't have the contract, so I'm curious, like when you say the template for the pre-agreement costs, is there a form that you could send to us so that we can be documenting it correctly? We're new, and so maybe that's what something others already have, but we're new to this, so I don't know the best way to document those costs in compliance with ESG.
Yeah, so we have a pay request template. Each grant manager, it's the same template, and we're requesting that all of our grantees actually use that template this year. So what organization are you with, Kat?
Jefferson County Human Services.
Okay, so you would be one of Holly's grantees. So yeah, she can send you a template and you can start adding all of your costs on there. Just make sure that they're separate, which obviously at this point they would all be separate. And if you want to submit that to Holly, I don't know how Holly's on the call right now, but for my grantees, I'm okay with them sending those directly to me rather than uploading them to Neighborly, because you're not able to do that in Neighborly right now. But if you want to send me the template along with any proof of services and proof of payment, and I can hang on to that. And then once we get the executed agreement, it'll be easy to just kind of input that into Neighborly and get that approved. Yes, Holly.
Hi, I just wanted to also respond to Kat. There is a lot of pay request information on the ESG website with the toolkit. There is the several walkthroughs and webinars on submitting pay requests and all the requirements you'll be expected. So definitely while you're in this interim period, take the time to look at that. I sent several links yesterday. And then also the pay request template is on there. But basically for all grantees, as Aaliyah just said, and I'll reiterate, you have to have a proof of the cost incurred, which is typically timesheets or an invoice or a utility bill. And then you have to have proof of payment by your organization that we are reimbursing. So that's typically payroll, a credit card statement that shows you paid those utility bills, or your checks that pay invoices and things like that. So you always have to have those two pieces of evidence for every cost incurred.
Does that answer your question, Kat?
Yeah, that's helpful. I kind of forget about the website sometimes, but I know my fiscal office has gone through all of the webinars and the forums. So I will go back to them and we will start getting everything documented and prepared. So thank you.
Okay.
I did want to add Aaliyah's point about the risk assessments. That is the number one thing that grantees get scored high risk on, is having inconsistent and incoherent pay requests over and over again when we try to provide the guidance to try to put them in order, and not a bunch of random receipts. We don't know which activity they're assigned to. Like, is it street outreach, or is it shelter, or is this an admin receipt? The pay requests need to be organized, and that is the number one, I think, one of the number one reasons grantees get flagged for high risk is sort of lack of response, trying to get those pay requests organized in a way that we can process them efficiently. So I just want to give folks a heads up. That's a big one.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. And like I mentioned too, we do have that template that all of you all will be required to use when you submit a pay request. So that should help with better organizing, all of your payments. So yeah, did anyone have any additional questions? If not, I'll give you all the next 28 minutes back in your morning. Or not 28 minutes. My math is terrible. 12 minutes. Okay, awesome. Like I mentioned, oh, yes.
Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to say, I'm going to pop in the chat the pay request guidance, which is another document that's linked on our website for anyone who isn't familiar with it. That's a really helpful tool as well. Sorry, Aaliyah, for interrupting. Okay.
Oh, no, you're good. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Again, I highly encourage you all to check out the ESG website, our toolkit. There's a ton of resources on there that will really help you get through the grant, answer a lot of your questions as well. So take some time to review that when you all have a moment. But if there's no additional questions, I will let you all get back to enjoying your morning. And thanks for joining us. And I'll see you all next month at our next office hours. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.